Hello, welcome. This is my fourth and final installment for Volutidae, and we're actually going to look at the Melo shells today. And I've got a couple of groupings of them. This is the first lot we'll look at. All right, down here we have the beautiful Miltonus, the Southern Australia baler shell, and there's specimens there from Western Australia and South Australia. That one there is from South Australia, from Port Lincoln. That one from Western Australia, from Rottnest Island. That one also from Western Australia, Geograph Bay. And that one there is also from Rottnest Island. The smaller shells tend to be a bit more colourful, but still all very beautiful and quite variable. Magnificent species. Next, we'll look at another Australian species, and that is Georginae from central Queensland. Beautiful shell that, and great excitement when I came across each of those on various collecting trips. Beautiful shell. And another Australian species we have is Umbilicatus, and they're from Gulf of Carpentaria, sort of between Queensland and Northern Territory. It's a lovely shell. That the largest one there is 28 centimetres. Another common Australian shell is amphora, but we'll look at those a little later. All right, let's now look at Broderipi. Those specimens in you, those three there, are all from the Philippines. Get some lovely markings underneath. Lovely shell that, and this one also Broderipi, but interesting with the banding there. And it's from Trobriand Island. South of the island, and that's off Papua New Guinea. Beautiful shell, that one. Nautica, which is very similar to Broderipi. That one's also from the Philippines. And next to that, we have from Irian-Jaya, Aphiopica. It's the only one I've got. They grow much larger than that, but that's the only one I've ever come across. Another Broderipi, the largest one in this selection, that's 32 centimetres. Beautiful shell, that one. And also a very large shell here, Melo from Indonesia. It's 28 centimetres, and you get, not uncommonly, with markings, and then also you get a very plain shell as with no markings as well. And I think that grows to over 30 centimetres. All right, so that's the first little installment. Now I want to look at the amphora, and they're all from Northern Australia. In fact, they've all been collected from the Northern Territory. All right, extremely variable. I wouldn't be surprised if there are a couple of different species amongst this lot. There's a good candidate for a different species. The spines are much more plentiful than the usual amphora, and the pattern is fairly consistent. Some lovely patterns there. Some very broad shells, some much thinner shells. Lovely variety there. Very few patterns, too many patterns. Very few spines, too many spines. My largest specimens are here. And there's my largest baler shell. That is 44 centimetres. Beautiful shell. I believe balers grow to over 50. I think 550 is about the largest. And I've got about half a dozen or so that are in excess of 35 centimetres. Here's an interesting little group here, all baby ones. I occasionally come across egg cases washed up on the beach, and that's typical of the unhatched shells, and they hatch out about that size. And then all the other ones have been washed up in storms. In fact, just about all the shells here have been washed up in storms, and the vast majority are dead collected. A few of them were washed up with the animals still in them, but the animal being dead, I class that as dead collected as well. And a couple of trawled specimens, like that largest one, I suspect would have been alive when it was trawled. All right, there's my albino specimens. No markings at all on those two shells. Very magnificent to have. Don't think they're very common, being pure white. And then this is a very interesting one, a very light shell, quite different to amphora in many ways. So I'm wondering if that is also a different species. But such an interesting collection of shells, and so varied. So, as I said, I don't quite know what the criteria is for new species, but I think there might be a few candidates there. All right. And I just wanted to come back to umbilicatus, because some of those amphora shells we looked at could indeed be umbilicatus, or perhaps even a cross between the two. I must admit there's a number of specimens I have that I'm not sure whether to call them amphora or umbilicatus, so perhaps there's some crossbreeding in relation to those two species. All right, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the video.